Just a few moments ago, former boxer turned trainer analyst, brother of Callum Smith, Paul Smith, was on the show speaking live from Liverpool. And amongst other things, Paul's got a lot in his mind. He wants to do all he can for the boxing industry, setting up a boxers union, which he thinks longer term will help boxers who really do need that help.
I'm an ex-boxer. I know a lot about boxing. I've given my life to boxing. I've got 30 years of experience in boxing. And I consider myself an expert in boxing without sounding big-headed, but I don't know about unions or trade unions. I don't know about contracts as much as I should. We've got members of the TUC, we've got members of the PFA. We've been getting the right background checks on things and the right people advising us on things. And we just want to give fighters a fair crack at the whip. We want to work with anyone that we can, all the promoters, the boxing board's control. I'm sick to death of sitting there watching fighters getting their hands wrapped, and I'm the representative from the team, and the official doesn't know what he's looking for or she's looking for. And that for me is criminal. If you're in a sport, working in a sport, an official in a sport, you should know that sport inside out. That goes for football, it goes for boxing, it goes for any sport out there.
Ade, it sounds good, but would it work? I mean, it's been tried before.
Yeah, look, it's a fantastic idea and it's something that's needed, but I think the implementation of it and getting it off the ground is a whole different story. Boxing's the wild, wild west. It really is, and I think fighters need protecting. So look, I hope something can happen. I hope that they can take some ideas from what Paul's saying and put something in place, but I'm not quite sure. Look, I don't know what the barriers to entry are for managers in boxing, but I'm guessing they're very easy and very thin, because I speak to boxers all the time who have always got problems with their managers and are always going down the legal routes with managers as well, who seem to sign up boxers and then take more than they should from boxers. I'm not going to mention names, but I was lucky enough to sit with a very, very talented female boxer recently, and she told me a story of a promoter reaching out to her to fight on a card, and it was her biggest payday ever, 6 figures. Her then manager called her and said, we've been offered a third of that. So they were trying to take 2/3 of the fee that she was offered from said promoter. Again, I don't want to mention names, I don't know letters in the post, but that's what goes on in the boxing world.
I mean, people watched him Witherspoon and his particular conundrums with Don King. Paul Smith is a very decent fellow, and he knows, I think, very highly of him and his family. But this idea that it's not, in part, the responsibility of the boxers to contribute to their own well-being. Of course, we saw during COVID they couldn't spar, they couldn't earn, they couldn't fight. We've seen the landscape of fights being cancelled and subsequently the ramifications of fighters that were tuned up and ready to go for the Conor Benn, Chris Eubank Jr. fight that was stood down at the last minute. And we know the ramifications of it. But the British Boxing Board of Control are responsible for officials making sure that people get their hands wrapped properly. And secondly, if you believe that the reasons why Barry McGuigan's idea that was indexed to the TUC all those years ago, that was centred in the same sentiments, but ultimately only, I believe, 2 boxers actually wanted to pay. 2 boxers wanted to pay their membership fees. If you believe you're going to get the broadcasters, this is not football. This doesn't have £3 billion a year coming in from broadcast revenue that you can take 1% of, and the PFA can sit there and do bugger all for that. This is a whole different dynamic.
Yeah, but when you say it's not football, then the same argument can be in terms of financial rewards for these fighters. It's not football. Some fighters don't make any money. Some fighters only are on cards because they sell tickets.
If you choose,
you go. What was that, Ade?
Some fighters make no money. Some fighters. I speak to so many fighters who are on undercards of fights just to be on the card, and they sell tickets. They make no money.
And I understand that. And it's an unfortunate set of circumstances. If that's a sport that you choose to participate in, then ultimately, if you want...
come on, Simon. Fair's fair.
Hang on. If you want the support mechanisms, nobody has a pension without contributing it most of the time. Nobody has health insurance in any other walk of life. And I understand that you put yourself in a way of situations where you're getting hit in the face. But I do think that certainly at certain levels of remuneration, that a percentage of the fighters' fees for a fight should be dropped into the union, to fund private pensions, to fund investment policies for fighters, so that they're given support structures. I don't disagree with the principles of it, but if you think you're going to get Sky and DAZN and TNT to pony up the money to fund your union when the members themselves aren't going to do it, and their membership fees are going to be so insignificant that it's not going to fund the union, then I think you're slightly naive.
Ade, you've got your ear to the ground. Do you think boxers want a union?
Yeah. I think boxers are desperate for a union. I think they're desperate. I don't know if
everyone
union
wants a
is the
union.
right thing.
They haven't got to fund
but
it.
I think boxers are desperate for something. Obviously, we have the Ali Act. which no one enforces, so it's worthless. It means nothing, and that's there to protect boxers and fighters, and it doesn't. But boxers need something. I mean, boxers are screaming for a world governing body to look over it because, again, as I said at the top, it is the wild, wild west. There are managers for managers, there are promoters for promoters. They need something, right? They do need something. Yeah.
Unified governance. But representation is representation. If you sign up, I mean, you've just seen all over the newspapers this week, Mazza Majid parading around in boxing, somebody that tried to buy a football club from me 10, 12 years ago. Everyone knows what he got up to with corruption in the IPL and ultimately in Croydon Athletic. But the bottom line is that if you want a union, every union in the world gets funded by its members except sports unions. How's that work then?
Yeah, I mean, the boxers themselves have got to contribute to it, Ade, obviously, to get the damn thing off the ground.
I think once you get past a certain level, though, and I think that's fair.
That might well be
obviously,
agreed.
Once maybe British level fighters, when you start earning some money, good enough money, I think to us area level fighters and guys coming through fighting for English titles who are making no money, once you pay your trainer, your managers, your sparring fees, you're left with very little. I think once you get past British level and you start making some profit, then yes, you can maybe chuck in 1% of your earnings or 2%.
What about the promoters? Should they not contribute to it?
They should, but they won't.
But they should.
But again,
but it's a fighters. If it's a fighters union, why would the promoters do it?
Tell me why.
No, tell me why they shouldn't.
Well, tell me why they should.
They make their money out of making that fight with boxer against boxer.
So when you again, let's look at the Ed Hearn argument about Joshua Barazzi, how he's funded Joshua Barazzi to get to a level when Joshua Barazzi started making some money, he fancies going off with another promoter. It runs both ways. It runs both ways. By the way, the Ali Act is an American act; it doesn't apply in this country. But the point is that I agree that there needs to be more done for fighters, but how you do it and how they contribute themselves. You want a union, pay your dues for it, and then get the benefits of it. And if you don't want a union or you want it for nothing, then with due respect, what kind of union you're going to get? And if you've got leading lights, I mean, Paul Smith's motivations are absolutely on the money. And I understand the sentiments of needing to give some more solidity to these fighters and more stability to the industry. But like Ade says, it's the Wild West. That doesn't mean it should continue that way. But it's not the job of the promoters.
What makes me think
that
it should happen, Paul, to be honest, it should happen, Simon, is that Paul Smith's got other things to do with his time. Having been a fighter and having been in there where it hurts, he could easily say, union, no, I'm not getting involved in that. He's getting involved in it for a reason.
And that's fine, Jim. We're all agreeing it's a good idea.
Yeah.
We're talking now about how it gets funded and the benefits of that.
So you're just anti-union.
Well, I'd be bloody right I am, because if you ever dealt with them, you'd know why I'd be anti-union. But the point is this, is that if they want a union to be able to support the challenges of boxers, then they should in part fund it themselves. That's what every other union and every other walk of life does.
Okay.
Why is it different for sport?
Okay, well, let's get behind it though, Ade, because in the longer term, I think it's much needed. As you rightly say, there are boxers out there who fight and don't make a penny.
Yeah, and also, I mean, you could be a boxer and you could fight for 5,000. Your next fight, you could fight, and this is very true, 500,000. And you need help with that. You need to understand that as well. You understand the accountants of that. So, boxers certainly do need help. And I think the idea that Paul Smith has put together is a good one. Again, I don't know how you get it off the ground, but I do think there are parts in that. And I agree with Simon. I think fighters need to fund it, but I think it's fighters on a certain level that need to fund it, and I think they will.
Okay. In the world of football, Jordan Henderson.
Simon just laughed when I said I think they will.